Public Protector?
Yes, Chairperson, the Deputy Public Protector is here, the acting CEO and the acting CFO, and then the support management is also here. So we are finalizing the connection of the DPP's computer, but we are ready, Chairperson. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let me welcome the Deputy Public Protector. This is her first committee appearance. We welcome you, Deputy Public Protector. The last time we met you, it was during the interviews. Today we'll be considering the strategic plan, the annual performance plan, and the budget for the Office of the Public Protector. I will now hand over to the Public Protector to lead us with the presentation. Public Protector, you have 30 minutes to do all the presentations. Over to you.
Thank you, Chairperson. Can I kindly request that, I don't know whether you are fine, must we not show the presentation online, or we can just present?
No, we would like to see the presentation.
Chairperson?
We would like to see the presentation.
Guys, where's the presentation? Okay, 2 seconds, Chairperson. Okay. Thank you. In a presentation slide. Thank you, honorable members, Chairperson. Thank you for welcoming the Public Protector to make the presentation of our 2020 to 2025 strategic plan and 2020-21 annual performance plan. I'm with the DPP, the acting CEO and acting CFO, and the Public Protector executive managers in this meeting. So I will take you through the presentation. Definitely we'll make sure that all three of us will present within 30 minutes. So this is the overview of the presentation. We'll share with you the introductory remarks, Vision 2023, the strategic plan and the annual performance plan, the budget and the request for additional funding and the reasons thereof, and the plans for returning to the workplace, or what the Public Protector has been through this COVID-19 process. The opening remarks or introductory remarks, as I've already greeted everyone and appreciated the time you've allocated us. As an institution, we would want to show the committee how we are going to use the allocated budget, which is for the benefit of the grassroots of our society. So the grassroots I refer to are predominantly the communities which are found in squalid, overcrowded, semi-urban dwellings that we call informal settlements or slums, in the farms, in the hostels, and in the rural villages and townships. So the complaints received from those people in those communities, coupled with own initiative interventions in relation to the plight of the people, make the bulk of the caseload of the Public Protector South Africa, which is over 95% of our caseload. This should not come as a surprise, because we know from the Constitutional Court that litigation is prohibitively expensive. Accordingly, the grassroots can never afford to mount a case in court against an organ of state that has shortchanged them. A free service such as ours is thus the best bet at vindicating their rights, and we do vindicate their rights time and again. I will provide a few examples shortly. For the moment, I wish to highlight that this opportunity to address you, honorable members, comes a month after I completed a full 3.5 years in the office. I'm now at the halfway mark of my 7-year journey, leading a team of around 360 dedicated, experienced and highly competent men and women who are passionate about contributing towards leveling the playing field between the grassroots communities and those other communities which are better off. Next slide. Everything we do in the service to the people as the Public Protector Office, we are informed by Vision 2023, which I've already informed members of the House or of the Portfolio Committee or honorable members, which are 8 pillars: enhancing access to our services. This is obligatory in terms of the Constitution, engaging communities in their mother tongues for effective communication, increasing our footprint, and leveraging stakeholders' relations to advance our interests through memorandum of understandings, protecting an image of a stronghold for the poor, as we should be, ensuring that people are well versed in their rights, persuading organs of state to have effective in-house complaints resolution mechanisms, and inspiring people to be their own liberators. So this is an ambitious plan which we intend to achieve by October 2023, having served the non-renewable term of 7 years. To date, we have used a lot of radio to enhance access to our services. Over the last year, we had nearly 50 radio slots for this purpose. They were on Tobela FM, Mungani Lonene, Umhlobo Wenene, True FM, Ukozi, Lisedi, Ikwekwezi, Likwala Kwala, Mutsweding, and then a host of multilingual regional and community radio stations. We chose this over others because we wanted to give effect to pillar that demands us to use vernacular in order for our message to hit home. We also publish a multilingual newsletter and information brochure, which also come in Braille. So the expansion of our footprint is work in progress. We've agreed with the Department of Justice and Correctional Services and the South African Police, South African Post Office, among others, to use their premises so as to reach more people, thereby augmenting our 19 service centers as we have countrywide. So these agreements or memorandum of understandings we've signed with these departments. And for instance, currently we are negotiating in the Kuruman area with the local magistrates courts manager so that we can use the magistrates courts there to maximize as well the availability of the office and to save on costs. In addition to these 2 MOUs, there's several more pacts which we have signed with other stakeholders to allow them to also have their internal complaints mechanisms. So this will help us to collaborate, but also save on our resources. The stakeholders with whom we've entered into agreements in this regard include the Tax Ombudsman, Health Ombudsman, Special Investigating Unit, Public Service Commission, Financial Intelligence Center, Inspector General of Intelligence, Military Ombudsman, NPA, CCMA, the South African Human Rights Commission, the provincial legislatures, including those in the Free State, Limpopo, Gauteng, Northwest, and Eastern Cape. As already indicated, these agreements are bearing fruits because, for instance, the MOU with the Human Rights Commission has made it possible for us to collaborate with on the Alexandra Renewable Project investigation in Johannesburg, as well as safety and service delivery challenges at the notorious Cleveland's hostel in Durban. We continue to encourage organs of state, which is now our key focus this years going forward, that they must establish internal complaints handling units. We spearheaded a drive in 2018, and an informal audit in this regard has revealed that some organs of states do have such units. For instance, out of the 14 out of 42 organs of states that we checked within the Northwest, they did establish such centers And such units, while 6 out of 12 in KwaZulu-Natal, 12 out of 32 in Mpumalanga, also do have such mechanisms. This picture is pretty much the same in other provinces. Therefore, by this, we would want to make sure that we engage as well the Department of Public Service and Administration, so that it's compulsory for all departments to have such, or even for their accounting officers to have such, so that people can lodge complaints first with the relevant complaints units in the various departments before approaching the public protector. This will allow that we reduce our workload, and also it will allow us to save on the influx or the workload for the complainant, for our investigators, so that we can also be efficient. Next one. Meanwhile, we remain a place of refuge for the marginalized, and so far since 2016, we've processed more than 40,000 complaints. Out of the 60,000 complaints which have been lodged, we've issued nearly 150 investigation reports, and I'm proud of these modest achievements, changing the life of persons at the grassroots. And for instance, last August, I was invited by a community of 64 households living in a tent in Welgespreid near Reimsig and Rodepoort, Gauteng. They had been relocated to the area by the provincial government after being evicted by the Red Ants from a privately owned plot. They complained about not having access to basic services such as water, electricity, sanitation, etc. So a successful mediation process which brought together the complainants and organs of state, such as the Provincial Human Settlements Department and the City of Johannesburg, has since resulted in the installation of 2-bedroom prefabricated structures, which the families will occupy soon, ending the 3-year-long ordeal. Although this is only a temporary measure, it will go a long way, at least to restore human dignity to those 64 families. And also, we've issued a report where we also investigated the issue of access to water for the communities of Northwest. That report has been issued, especially the residents of Ngaka Molemo district, where we've made several recommendations to the Ministry of Water and Sanitation and the provincial government. Next slide. Quick, guys. The next one. We've also helped in Limpopo as the interventions we've made, where we helped 7 households in Ngwenane Yahatimele village in Toyando to get reconnected to the municipal water supply network, bringing an end to a 5-year period of ordeal, not having water in that particular community. Further, in Musina, we've helped the indigent 98-year-old granny whose water was restored after 2 months. The next one. Okay. Unfortunately, Chairperson, the slide takes time to show the next one. Okay.
You can continue, it's on now.
Okay, there are many examples which I will not deal with, Chairperson, so that we can save on time, especially because I was given, we are given 30 minutes to present. There are many other examples which we can give, and it's only 5% of our work which is normally in the media, and I was just trying to show that 95% of our work is more of servicing the grassroots. And we have reflected on our previous successful and failures, and we've made adjustment when necessary as reflected in our strategic plan. So the adjustments are also as a result of the shrinking budget. We are likely to make more adjustments so that the workload is proportionate to the available resources, as can be seen in the annual performance plan. For the first of the 5 years, we want to resolve complaints within stipulated timeframes, issue a specific number of investigation reports in a year, dispose of a backlog, and as well deal with systemic investigations. Actually, this one will be our key focus. The next one. So I'll deal with the issue of we've been joined by the Deputy Public Protector, Advocate Kolega Kalega, and in terms of Section 22A 6 and 7 of the Public Protector Act, I have delegated Advocate Kalega oversight of complaints and stakeholder management branch, which is responsible for the registration, assessment of all incoming complaints, and as well the administrative justice and service delivery, which deals with a lot of service failures in state institutions. She also chairs all alternative dispute resolution sessions, oversees the signing of the settlement agreements, and monitors compliance of our remedial actions. There are many examples which we will give, and Advocate Kalega as well will also address the members of the community if there's a need of the interventions which she has made up to this far. Then coming to the issue of the our operations during this lockdown, accordingly, we have been working remotely. Our investigators have been processing complaints, and we've been receiving complaints. During this process, we've received up to 158 new cases at head office alone during this period. This included those South African citizens who were stranded in Egypt after having paid for flights back home due to the lockdown. There was also a case involving a number of South African students who found themselves in similar predicament in Russia, and they needed to be repatriated back home. We will continue to work as long as the lockdown lasts while observing strict safety practices. We urge all accounting officers across the board to be prudent when spending public funds and observe the dictates of Section 217 of the Constitution, the PFMA and FMMA. The relaxation of procurement rules is not an invitation for improper conduct and maladministration. We remain indebted to all our stakeholders who've been on our side since October 2016, and we depend on their unwavering support going forward. Most of all, we depend on Parliament's support of our plans to enable us to better serve the grassroots. Chairperson, can I hand over to the CEO, acting CEO, Ms. Lusibane, to present the strategic goals of the institution. Thank you, Chairperson. Can she go ahead?
Yes, she can.
Thank you, PP. Good afternoon, honorable members.
I'm saying you're left with 10 minutes. Hello.
Good afternoon, Chairperson.
Good afternoon.
May I continue?
Yes, yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Chairperson. Thanks once more for the opportunity. Before I can continue, Chairperson, I just want to highlight a few errors on the annual performance plan that we submitted and tabled in Parliament. The errors are on page 29, 37, 39, and 40. We have since corrected these errors on the final published APP. On page 29, under the target of number of outreach clinics conducted across the country, on year 2021 to 2023, we omitted to include across the country. So it should read conduct 208 outreach clinics across the country by 31 March 2021. And then on page 37, Under the technical indicator descriptions on means of verification, on the indicator that says percentage of 2-year and older cases finalized, on number 1 it should read list of cases indicating cases that are 2 years and older, not that all. That was the error on the page, on that page. On page 39, at the end, the last paragraph there, indicator responsibility, it should read executive managers instead of the performance higher than the one targeted and is desired. And then lastly, on page 40, similar, under indicator responsibility at the bottom, it should read executive manager, CSM, PII, and provincial representatives. We omitted to add representatives. Thank you, Chairperson. In terms of our 2025 strategic plan, we still envision to see our people empowered and to also have the public administration accountable for their actions or non-actions. In terms of our mission, we intend to protect all persons against administrative injustices, improve service delivery, and promote good governance in state affairs. Our purpose statement is being a catalyst of change in pursuit of good governance. Our impact statement is to empower everyone at all levels of society to effectively engage organs of state about any injustice, service delivery failure, or improper conduct, and assist organs of state to establish and maintain efficient and effective governance and administration. Our principles are accountability, integrity, and responsiveness. Our values are passion, Ubuntu, leadership, and efficiency, hence the Vision 2023. In terms of our strategic outcomes, we want our services to be accessible to all communities. We want to be able to investigate and finalize all our investigations within our turnaround times. We also envision to obtain a clean audit opinion in the year 2021 and have it maintained throughout the strategic period. We also intend to implement and improve our ICT systems to optimally support business objectives, and also to have ongoing engagements with ombudsman and organs of state. In program 1, we've got 2 outputs for the year 2021. The first one being the clean audit opinion that we spoke about earlier. That is our target for 2021. Although we were very close in the previous year, but we believe in 2021 it is possible that we achieve this target. In terms of IT infrastructure implemented, we've targeted to 100% implementation of mobile referral application. This is the app that will help our clients to be able to be easily referred to other institutions, and also to immediately respond on issues that are of non-jurisdiction in terms of our mandate. And then in terms of Program 2, which is investigations, we plan to finalize 50 investigation reports by 31 March 2021. You would note that we had 56 in the previous year. However, we have reduced the target. We are being realistic in terms of our capacity financially as well as human capacity. The second one is we plan to finalize our cases, 80% of our cases within the turnaround times, early resolution 6 months, service delivery 12 months, good governance cases 24 months, which are not very complex, but those that we consider very complex, we plan to finish them within 36 months, 80% of those. Again, it's a question of the capacity that we have, together with the issue of financial constraints. As you will note, as we go through the budget, you will notice how our budget looks like.
You're left with 5 minutes.
In terms of our percentage of 2 years and older cases, also 80% for the same reason. In this financial year, we plan to finalize 2 systemic investigations, which were identified in 1920. 10 dialogue will be held with organs of state, similar to the previous financial year. In terms of outreach clinics, we have planned for 208. However, this number may not be achievable in terms of the plan that we initially had, considering the travel restrictions that we have. However, we have innovative ways of ensuring that we are still able to reach out through digital platforms, radios nationally, and also community radio stations. The 9 public protector roadshows, similar approach will be used. And in terms of our radio interviews, we are likely to increase that target because of how we are going to approach the outreach clinics instead of the physical interaction with the communities. We will enter into 1 bilateral agreement with the Ombudsman institution or assistant organ of state to strengthen its internal complaints handling mechanism. The public protector will be chairing all scheduled IOC and IOMA meetings for the financial year. Like I indicated, due to the COVID-19 pandemic, measures are in place to deal with it, and also our targets as we go through the course of the year will have to be revised accordingly to ensure that we have targets that are attainable. However, as a team, we are confident that we'll be able to implement the APP. I will hand over then to the acting CFO for his part.
Thank you very much. Afternoon, Chairperson and honorable members. I'll be presenting the budget of Public Protector for the Public Protector South Africa for the year 2021. I'll actually go to slide number 33. In terms of our revenue, we receive our revenue from National Treasury through the Department of Justice. Our budget for 1920, it was 343 million. And then there's a reduction of 341, particularly from the grant from Department of Justice by 9%. And then in terms of 21 to 22 is 361 million. 22 to 23 is 378 million. The escalation for 21, it's only a CPI increment. Then in terms of our expenditures, we have compensation of our employees as we are labor-driven because we use investigators to investigate our cases. And then the budget is 266 million. The outer 2021-22 is 281 million. 22 to 23 is 295 million. In terms of our goods and services, we've got contractual obligations of 60 million, which includes our cleaning services, our office rentals, CETA fees, and Microsoft fees of 61 million. And then we 2021-22, we've got 64 million. 2022, we've got 67 million. In terms of our finding of key activities in the EPP, we have them listed. Because I'm trying to save time, I won't go through them. However, we've got non-contractual obligations of 8.8 million, which includes the issues of training, marketing, stationery, and all those small items. And then we have the capital expenditure budgeted at 3.1 million, which includes the office furniture and computer equipment. And the outtake is 3.3, the other outtake is 3.45 million. Then the other one, the next slide is administration. It's our programs broken down as follows. We've got administration, 135 million. We've got investigations, which is our core branch, at 192 million. And then we've got stakeholder management budgeted at 14.2 million. Then we've recently received a communication from National Treasury indicating that there's a possibility of them cutting our budget by 17%. In our case, that 17% is 58 million. That 58 million is actually our goods and services, which includes the things that I've mentioned previously. So it means if they actually go ahead and cut us 78 million, it means we'll only be left with 15 million in our goods and services, which means we won't be able to operate effectively. We'll only be left with compensation of employees within our budget. So I'll go to slide 37, whereby we show the impact that I've just indicated. PPSA will not be able to implement planned targets for the 2021 if the proposed budget will be implemented. Public Protector South Africa had, among other things, planned to award contract for employee wellness in the current year, which has since become critical considering the current pandemic. And then Public Protector South Africa will not be in position to absorb any budget cuts. This has been communicated to the National Treasury, and then we still await the response. In terms of, I think the CEO has already indicated that we have budget constraints. However, we are still able to deliver our APP targets within the budget. However, we still request more. For an example, we request for funding of the critical positions. Since 2017 and 18 to 2018-19, we had 33 positions that became vacant due to resignation. Then due to the budget constraints, PPSA could not fill these positions. The number of critical positions request funding for will amount to 53 million. And then we also have put in the escalation of the other years. And then in terms of the subject matters, some of our investigations require specialized skills in certain areas. This include actuaries, procurement experts, forensics specialists, built environment specialists, and ICT specialists. The request is 10 million. Our insurance for newly acquired vehicles, which is budgeted at 100,000, which we use it to reach the far-flung areas within South Africa. Then in terms of the insurance of the servers, all PPSA servers are not insured, and should a disaster strike, we will not be able to replace them. This is especially relevant when we have been implementing, or Eskom has been implementing load shedding. So the request is 350,000. Fuel requirements for new vehicles is 100,000. And then as security, we only have the security in the head office. And then of the 17 of our offices, they don't have security. Hence, we request the security. And then protective equipment in terms of COVID-19, we are requesting 451,000. And then training in terms of our training in terms of employees, we calculated at 1.5% from the total of compensation, because we need to actually train our investigators and our senior investigators on regular basis. The e-library, LexisNexis, we also request an amount of 250,000. And then case management system, we also requested an amount of 15 million. And then the employee wellness, yes, it is budgeted for, but not adequately. We also request further 266,000. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairperson. If I may also take you through in terms of our state of readiness for returning to the workplace under the level 4 lockdown. Like the PP indicated earlier, we've been working remotely, however, not at full capacity due to others not being able to work because of lack of tools of trade. We are classified as an essential services, therefore we have been working like I indicated. So we are ready to go back to our workplace in line with the requirements as from the 18th of May, wherein we have all the safety precautions which are required. They are in place. We'll be complying to the 33% in terms of our capacity. Our PPE has been procured. We have all the things that we need to return to the office. There are procedures that will be followed if an employee tests positive as guided by the regulations. We will ensure that the office is closed immediately, is disinfected, as well as inform the Department of Labor and the Department of Department of Health. And those that employees that test positive will remain at home until they are fully recovered without having to return to the office. Procedures that will be followed as a continuation, if there's evidence that a worker has contracted the virus as a result of being exposed at work, therefore the Compensation of Injuries Disease Act will kick in. We'll also provide administrative support to any contract tracing measures as implemented by the Department of Health. In terms of the expenditure that we've already incurred for the PPE, which had not planned, however, it was necessary to ensure that our employees are safe. We have spent 95,000 on disinfection, 39,000 on sanitizers, Cloth masks we spent 30,000. Gloves we spent 15,000. Temperature scanners we spent 27,000. We also planning to we are in the process of procuring laptops, which will cost us 3.7 million, in order to ensure that our employees are able to continually work from home, especially because we've been notified that the worst is yet to come in terms of the pandemic, especially during the month of July and August. That is all from our presentation, Chairperson and honorable members. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Chairperson. That's all our presentation. Apologies for being over by 3 minutes. I wanted DPP to also say something, but I think I'll hand over back to the Chairperson unless you can allow that indulgence.
Yes, can we allow the DP to say something? The DPP? DPP?
Good afternoon, Honorable Chair, and good afternoon to the honorable members, the Public Protector and colleagues. Thank you so much for the opportunity that you've given me to at least say something as my maiden appearance before the Portfolio Committee. Chairperson, I must say that during my period, it's been just over 3 months now, I have indeed been received by the Public Protector South Africa with utmost warmth. And during this time, I have had several engagements with all staff members in person and through virtual conferencing in order to understand the organization, get to know its systems, and most importantly, the organizational culture. And mostly, Chairperson, this time of the pandemic has been of utmost eye-opening to myself, where as the unit of AGSD, we've received amongst many matters, the matters from the most impoverished communities within our country, mostly complaining about basic services that are not being delivered, of water and sanitation. We remain hopeful that with the contingency measures that government is putting in place, there will be permanent measures that will be put in place to ensure that even the grassroots level after the pandemic, when everybody else speaks of a new normal, they too will speak of a new normal where they would have water and sanitation. Chairperson, upon my arrival, I have been given delegations by the Public Protector, which we have both agreed to, and I accept this mammoth task with the utmost commitment to deliver upon the task that has been given to me. Chairperson, from the customer service and management side, we have already done an assessment of all the matters that we have with a view of ensuring that we take some of these matters to the departments which have not been exhausted by the department in terms of their internal mechanisms. This we are doing through strengthening our stakeholder relations, and also we've assessed our memorandums of understandings that we have with the several departments. For example, we are also in a process of assisting the Department of Home Affairs to be able to effectively deal with the complaints that are being posed against the Department of Home Affairs that in fact come to us as a first instance, whereas we should actually be the last line of defense. Honorable Chairperson, through our stakeholder department, we are indeed strengthening these relations so that we ensure that departments themselves are able to implement and deliver effective and efficient services to the people of South Africa. Chairperson, through the department, the unit, the branch rather, of the Administration Justice In service delivery, we have identified systemic investigations, particularly of the city of Tshwane, where the complainants are complaining about the electricity, as meter readings, as well as the water. We have begun a systemic investigation in this regard, as well as with the JIPA, where most of the complaints are on the pension funds. Chairperson, we have also realized that as an institution, it is important to build on the Vision 2023 of the Public Protector, but also to take some of the legacy that has been left by the previous public protectors. And as such, we have drawn and uplifted the report of the former public protector, Advocate Selby Baqwa, wherein he had done a systemic investigation on the gaps in the communication in the public administration. We are assessing the previous gaps that he had identified, comparing them with the gaps that we are identifying in our different investigations and service delivery in order to amend this report or to give more life to this report for its implementation, to ensure that we are able to ensure that government realizes the gaps in service delivery that are putting us in the position that we are in. In ensuring the effectiveness of this process, we have written to the Director General in the Presidency, as well as the Director of the Department of Public Service and Administration for cooperation, so that we are able to process what we would have found through this process through foresight and ultimately have it adopted through cabinet. This is it, to ensure that we limit the number of cases that are of the similar nature that come before the public protector. This will ensure that government is able to deal with the matters that are of priority to the people of the Republic of South Africa. I will pause there for now, Chairperson. Thank you.
No, thank you very much, Deputy Public Protector. I will now open this time for members to ask questions, to make comments, suggestions. I will start with Honorable Swart, followed by Honorable Hendricks, followed by Honorable Jelle. Honorable Jelle will be followed by Honorable Nivot Drachans, then Honorable Glenis Breitenbach, Honorable Horn, and then Honorable Nola. In that order, Honorable Swart.
Thank you, Chairperson, and thank you to the Public Protector, and our congratulations to the Deputy Public Protector, and welcome today. May I just raise a number of issues? And firstly, I was particularly interested in the 158 new cases relating to COVID-19, and I'd ask the Public Protector to possibly give us a detail in writing as to the nature of those cases. Obviously, we are all concerned about the COVID-19, but my greater concern is, as you indicated, under Section 217 of the Constitution and the point of relaxation. It is not an invitation to corruption, and I'd ask you to please watch very carefully, and you might want to look into the whole issue of the procurement of the PPEs, given the fact that there are now deviations from the National Treasury instructions due to emergency procurements. We've heard of a lot of allegations of corruption, and this is something that we would urge you to look into. And then, appreciating that a lot of your focus and attention is on the grassroots levels, I'm deeply concerned about what you're establishing about the water and sanitation complaints. I would also ask you to consider a systematic investigation into malnutrition that is occurring as a result of the COVID-19 lockdowns. In particular, I'd refer you to the most recent report by Dr. Glenda Gray, who is a member of the Ministerial Advisory Committee, and she said for the first time they are seeing malnutrition at the Chris Hani Baragwanath Hospital. Now, this is a great concern to me as we exercise oversight. This doctor is a member of the Ministerial Advisory Committee, and she indicates that it would appear that the Command Council is not listening to the advice of certain of the medical staff, and here we are seeing malnutrition. and that is a great concern, and I would ask you to look into that, which then brings me to the issue of your engagement as the public protector with the drafters of the regulations. And I'd ask you, to what degree are you able to make inputs into the drafting of what we would consider very severe lockdowns, particularly as we are moving with the possibility of lifting certain of those lockdowns, and how you, from your experience of what you're picking up on the ground, are able to make positive contributions to the drafting of those regulations. Then I am deeply concerned about the cuts to your budget, given the work that you are doing. And again, Chairperson, I think we've expressed this in the past, that we understand the constraints that the country is faced with, but we cannot allow that these budget 58 million, which is proposed, and I appreciate that a letter has been written to National Treasury to reconsider that, but we from Parliament side need to appreciate that this will severely constrain the work of the Public Protector. Last, I would ask you possibly to give us a report on the labour issues at the Public Protector, given what we read in the media about various executive managers, chief investigators, the Free State provincial manager, and we appreciate that the Speaker of Parliament has received a letter from the PSA to investigate that as well. And then just very lastly, again, on the issue of a number of the court cases, I'm concerned, again, as I've raised in the past, about some of the findings of the various court cases. I appreciate that they might be subject to appeal, but I am concerned about some of the, what I would call the damning findings, and of course the implication of the costs orders and the implication on your litigation costs, because clearly that impacts on your budget. That is an issue which we need to look at. Chairperson, thank you for allowing me those questions.
Honourable.
Thank you very much, Honourable Chair.
Honourable Swart. Honourable Swart, can you repeat where you stopped on the court cases? We could not hear you.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Just briefly, again, to say what I have said in the past, that we are extremely concerned about some of the scathing judgments, some of the scathing findings, which have in some cases resulted in personal cost orders against the Public Protector. And I appreciate that the most recent one may be, and that is the President Ramaphosa court matter, may be the subject of an appeal. But again, I am concerned about some of the findings in that court judgment, which was a full bunch judgment, which had some scathing findings. I don't necessarily want the Public Protector to comment on that, because it may be the subject to appeal, but it is something we need to take note of as a committee. But my greater concern is the litigation costs that the Public Protector indicates is a severe risk in the budget, and what motivates some of the cases that are either, obviously many of the Public Protector's decisions are taken on review, and then how she decides whether to defend those, or in certain cases, whether to bring applications herself. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Hendricks.
Thank you very much, Honourable Chair. I want to know why the Public Protector's Office is not preparing for level 3, because we are expecting a lot of complaints, and if they're just getting up for level 4, they will be caught with their pants down. I also want to know why the Public Protector are disproportionate why are they disproportionate in giving more attention to complaints by political parties than communities on the ground, and they are tying themselves up with lengthy cases instead of dealing with the basic cases of people on the ground. I'm very happy that on the radar is addressing the water and sanitation problems, and I especially want the Public Protector to continue their vigilance on sewage pollution, because the African child in all over the country, especially in the Western Cape, are living in sewerage, are playing in sewerage, are eating in sewerage, And I know the public protector did some great work in Mashupumaleli, where they put the mayor in the dock and asked her to sort out what she called this nonsense. We cannot allow that the basic rights and needs of communities on the ground are not getting the necessary attention, and the public protector is prioritizing complaints by big business, by political parties. I hope that will change in the future. Thank you very much, Honourable Chair.
Thank you very much, Honourable Jelle. Honourable Jelle, can we move to?
Thank you, Chairperson, and also thank you, Public Protector and the team. And we also congratulate and welcome our new DPP, Advocate Kollega Kalega. I can see from her presentation, Chairperson, that indeed she is now on the ground and doing something in assisting the office, and we really appreciate that. Also, Chairperson, I want to appreciate the fact that the audit outcome show that the financial status has improved in the office of the PP, and there are no more deficits. We really thank the office for the good work that they are doing. And also the Department of Justice for assisting them with the 16 million that they provided them. And then also, Chairperson, let me acknowledge also and note the decline on new cases and backlog, but I don't think that those decline of new cases, it is because of maybe our people on the ground are not getting services. I know that they're getting services, and I appreciate that the office has been beefed up with the women in particular, and I know that they are going to do a good job, and they are really supporting and also backing up each other. On the issue of security also, Chairperson, I have a comment that we really need to assist in that matter and make sure that funding is provided for them to have security. This is the matter that was raised also in our previous meetings. So let's take care of that. And I think I will also, in conjunction with that, I will also add on the voice of one of our colleagues there that budget is important, that we recommend and propose to the Treasury that the public protector's budget should not be cut, and then also they have to provide more funding to assist with the work that is happening on the ground, particularly during this time of COVID. They really need support, our support, Chairperson. And then also on the issue also, Chairperson, it has been raised also by the previous institutions. The SIU yesterday raised the issue of on the non-cooperation of the state institutions. Chairperson, that we have to zoom into that those departments and find out exactly which are these departments indeed that are not taking these matters serious. So we need to support the public protector on that one also. Coming to the issue of COVID, Chairperson, just want to find out from the public protector, do you already have officials in your office that are infected by COVID-19? If so, how many? How many do you have? And then also, I just want to find out during this period, Chairperson, of lockdown, both levels 3 and 4. I mean to say 5 and 4. Has the office been maybe having complained as they have measures? They did put some alternative measures for the community to be able to interact with the committee. Did they have some complaint during that time? And also, is there any specific complaints or investigation that may have arisen in response to the maladministration, the procurement irregularities during this time of lockdown. Also, Chairperson, I just want to find out if the public protector has already done any analysis of the potential impact of this COVID-19 on budgeting and then strategic planning in 2019 financial year. The other question that I would want to have, maybe going to the end, is the issue of, okay, is the same one that impact on the budget. If maybe they can comment on that one. I think on this one of the issue, I wanted to come to the issue of the litigations that are happening in that office. As my colleague indicated on that one. I think the issue of the litigations, Chairperson, also as the committee, we need to note also that those are the issues that we cannot avoid because of the democracy that is maturing. You know, our democracy is maturing, so everybody has the right, and we know that the courts has clarified the issue that people can also request for review of their cases. But in addition, Chairperson, we need to make sure that the public protector strengthen their quality assurance mechanisms in making sure that such issues, we have few of those issues. In conclusion, Chairperson, I've noted that indeed there are acting positions. There are acting positions, a number of them at the level of the senior management level. Can we have a comment of the public protector in that? I know that in terms of the budget, they can also have some problems in terms of filling of the vacancies, but can we have a more information in terms of that, exactly what the public protector is doing? Lastly, Chairperson, on the issue of languages, when the public protector was making a presentation, I noted that indeed they are using all the most mother tongue for addressing most of these issues. But I wanted to find out from the office, in conclusion, Chairperson, that do they have the interpreters in their offices? And also, do they have the services of the sign languages when they address these people, our people on the ground and everybody around their workspace? Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Honorable Nivot Drachans.
Thank you, Chairperson, and good morning to everyone. Good morning, colleagues, and good morning to the Public Protector and your office, and thank you for the presentations. I'm Wilmani Odruchan, voicing for me as my sign language interpreter. So, thank you. I want to add to what my previous colleague said with regard to the sign language interpreting. I do acknowledge that the Public Protector South Africa, communicates in various languages and speaks on the radio. But obviously this is not accessible to a large number of deaf people who are not able to get this information. So I would like to see, the work of the Public Protector being explained in sign language. I take note that you're doing things in Braille, and I acknowledge that and I congratulate that, but I think we do need to offer more services to the deaf community. I would like to ask, earlier in the presentation you mentioned that there were a couple of errors. Please can you email us, because I had to look at your presentation on another device, so I wasn't able to look at those errors. So please can you email us the corrections that were made and the errors that were there. Now with coronavirus, everybody is working online via video conferencing. So your ICT structure, is it strong enough so that your workers can work remotely and online? I'm also wondering about training to staff. Is that going to be on camera as well? Are you going to be able to do virtual training? Now, with coronavirus and the road shows that you usually do, plus the outreach that you normally do, the outreach clinics that you're doing, maybe that target is not going to be met. Have you considered other ways to be able to achieve those two targets? And then you said your server, you don't have insurance yet, but I want to know, are there any crashed servers now because of the load shedding, etc.? Has there been any crashes? And then your last slide, your very last slide, number 5, the temperature thermometer, there's no amount there. So I'm just curious what the amount was for that. And that's it. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Honorable Glenys Breitenbach.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Morning.
Hi. So, in the new DPP has been appointed and says she settled in, and that's good to hear. It appears that most of the tasks delegated to her don't include anything really operational. Could I just get some detail as to why that is? She is an advocate. She has been a prosecutor for some time. She should be ideally suited to operational issues. So I'd just like a little bit more detail about that. Then your strategic plan and your annual performance plan referred to opportunities to offset the financial pressure affecting the organization. What are these opportunities and how are they being pursued? Need a little more detail on that, please. In the 2019-2020 APP, there was an indicator, number of cases finalized by the Public Protector. The target over the medium term was set at 7,000. This indicator has been removed in the 2021 APP. What is the reason for that, please? Then your outreach program, may have a little more detail on the progress there. What is happening with your outreach program and how will possibly budgetary cuts affect this program? Then there was the announcement of Mr. Mboweni regarding budgetary reprioritization. How precisely will this affect the budget of your office? How will it affect your litigation strategy and how will you fund the strategy?
Honorable Breitenbach?
Yes.
Yes. Can you go back to where you were talking about targets that were removed, because after that we could not hear you.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Did you hear the question on the targets? Or must I repeat it?
Yes, you can just start there, yes.
Okay. The 2019-2020 APP has an indicator, number of cases finalized by the Public Protector. The target over the medium term was set at 7,000. This indicator has been removed in the 2021 APP. Why is that? Then I'd like a little more detail on the outreach program and how it's progressing and how budgetary cuts might affect that. Then the budgetary reprioritization announced by Tita Mboweni, how will this affect the budget of this office? How will it affect your litigation strategy? How will you fund your litigation strategy? And how do you envisage settling the personal cost orders made against the Public Protector? The payment of those costs for which the Office of the Public Protector is not responsible. Then Mr. Selby Mokgoto laid a complaint regarding the role of the Treasury and the South African Reserve Bank in the failure of the VBS Bank some time ago. Has there been any progress in that particular matter, and what is the reason for the delays? And then there was a proposed or a planned trip by the Public Protector to Turkey. All the arrangements were made, all the costs were covered, and then the sheriff arrived at the office to attach assets. I'm given to understand that that trip was cancelled. What will become of that wasteful expenditure? How will it be recouped, and how will it be dealt with? Thank you very much. Those are my questions.
Thank you very much, Honorable Ngola.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. I hope that I'm audible enough.
Very audible.
Thank you very much. Let me as well welcome the Deputy Public Protector and appreciate the Public Protector's clear delegation framework that which she has entrusted the Deputy Public Protector in. Chairperson, let me start with what Honorable Swartz calls the scathing judgment on the President of South Africa versus the Public Protector, which was followed by the SARS Commissioner versus the Public Protector. The court order there wants to give a reflection of an office that which is unable to apply relevant laws to relevant matters. It has got a dire implication on projecting or purporting the office as an office that does not understand the matters that fall within its own jurisdiction, which I think goes strictly and directly to the performance of the office. Equally, which has got an implication on what we are calling on the National Development Plan, the ethical and capable developmental state. I wish maybe the Public Protector can be able to give us confidence into those particular two leading cases which happened in the last financial year. The second issue I would like to venture in, Chair, is the issue with regard to acting positions or posts. We've seen in the financial year that which we have left 2019-2020, a number of senior managers being suspended. Inclusive to those is the senior manager in Free State. I think maybe because within our belief, it is clear that what makes the office capable to deal and execute its mandate is the kind of the staff complement that resides within that office. So if we continue having these actings, these suspensions and all that, it may have a negative implication into how the office itself performs. So maybe if the Public Protector can give us a briefing on that and the plan going forward in dealing with these matters and in dealing with the matter of acting positions. We have heard the Public Protector saying that part of what the Deputy Public Protector will be doing is to deal with matters of alternative dispute resolution. We hope that these matters will be taken to their conclusion with immediate effect, so that they don't hamper the progress of the office itself. Because we are aware that the union that which represents those employees has written to Parliament, to the Speaker, that the Parliament must give attention to that issue. So, Chair, maybe the Public Protector can give the committee, can take the committee into confidence as to what is happening and what is the plan to deal with those critical matters which may tamper with the capacity of the office to execute its own task. Chair, another issue is the issue of budget as presented by the CFO. I'm under the belief that there's been an increment in the budget allocated to the Public Protector's office, which was 322,600,000. in the 2019-2020 financial year, which is in the 2020-21 financial year, it's 341,800,000. Now, if we can get a framework on how do they plan to ensure that they utilize the extended budget to the advantage of the weaknesses or the weak points in the office, inclusive which the issue of rising matters which are taken to judicial reviews, which include part of what they report of matters of lack of security in some of the regional.
Honorable Ngola.
Yes, sir.
Honorable Ngola, can you go back to the 325 million budget? There was a problem after that.
Okay, Chair. Thank you very much. I apologize. I'm saying, Chair, I am under the briefing that there has been an increase, a slight increase into the budget of 2020-2021 financial year as compared to the 2019-2020 financial year. Now, I am saying, Chair, maybe a slight briefing on the plans of the office on how they would like to utilize such a budget, in particular given challenges of a rising matters being taken to judicial reviews, legal costs, matters of security, personnel that which is not provided in some of the regional offices. I hope that was clear, Chair.
Sure, thank you
very much. On the impact of COVID-19, Chair, the public protector is saying there has been new matters, I think 158 matters that have been reported in the office during this period. But I want to check first if are these matters related to the process of COVID-19. For example, we have got numerous issues on daily basis of social support being taken by officials and politicians. We've got cases of procurement processes being flouted on the procurement of PPEs and all the COVID-19 related matters. So I want to check, in these matters, are there matters that occurred previous to the lockdown, or they are matters relating to procurement matters of public funds that have been smuggled by some of us? The second issue on the impact, Chair, I've seen in the report that there's been a fax, there's been an email, and the website provided, so that the public is able to access the office even when the country is on lockdown. But I want to check, because it has been a common practice in all the departments that there is a hotline where urgent matters are reported to relevant offices. So I'd like to check, did the office have such a hotline where the public would be able to report these matters during a lockdown? The president has announced that we are transiting from COVID-19 alert level 4 to level 3. Which in my own view, Chair, will require some of the staff physically being in office. Now, I would like to check if the office is ready to welcome the staff in terms of the protecting, the personal protective equipment and the other relative issues that which are meant to protect the lives of those employees, Chair. And lastly, Chair, there has been numerous reports of an effort by the office to ensure that they contain costs by ensuring that offices of the public protector are hosted in state infrastructure premises. We have got a report as well that there has been numerous engagement with the Department of Public Works with regard to securing buildings of the state to ensure that the office is housed in different regions. So if they can give us a brief of how far have they gone with that, with the plan with the current budget that they've outlined. Thank you very much, Chair. That was all.
Thank you, Honorable Horn.
Thank you, Chairperson. Yes, others have spoken about the litigation matters. In the two matters which was fairly high profile of late, that being the President versus the Public Protector and the Commissioner of Revenue versus the Public Protector, media reports informed us that the Public Protector was to seek direct access to the Constitutional Court once again to appeal aspects of these judgments, including the personal costs orders. So it would be good if the committee could be informed as to whether that what's the progress with that, whether the direct access has been granted, and whether there is a time frame in which the Concord will deal with it, if that is indeed the case. Also on the litigation cost aspect, others has touched on it, Chair. Previously, we were informed that the quality aspects regarding reports rest with the COO position, which we know is also vacant. So if we could be informed as to who is now dealing with it and what specific measures has been put in place to ensure the legal integrity of reports, specifically also in light of the fact that in the APP and the Strat plan, there's no specific mention of any program or project to ensure the legal integrity of reports. Then, Chair, also on removed targets, previously there was for a number of years, a target of the development and implementation of a turnaround strategy. In past annual performance plans, we were informed that in this current financial year of 2020-2021, the turnaround strategy was to be fully implemented. But now it's completely removed. So if we could be informed as to what the status is of that turnaround strategy, specifically also as we understood that it was to be dealing also with matters that has been of concern and where there has been deficiency.
Honorable Horn.
Yes.
Honorable Horn. Honorable Horn.
Yes, Chair.
When you're saying specifically, you lost us there. If you can repeat that.
Okay. Yeah, specifically as the turnaround strategy, if I understood it correctly, was also to deal with matters that has been of concern at the Office of the Public Protector, matters of security issues at offices, ITC deficiencies, and the lack of a proper case management system. Then, in respect of the issue of cases older than 2 years, previously in the 1819 annual report, we were informed that 560 of 729 cases older than 2 years were finalized. I want specific details as to what has since then happened with the 169, which at that stage already was older than 2 years. Have they been dealt with? And as we speak now, we know there's now a new target of 80% of cases of 2 years and older to be finalized by the 31st of March next year. If we could be informed as to how many cases currently the Public Protector has on its table that are older than 2 years. And then, Chair, speaking of specific cases older than 2 years, the Vrede Dairy issue. Colleagues would recall that the Public Protector, in the light of comments by the Portfolio Committee in the previous Parliament, undertook to go back and reinvestigate the whole matter with an emphasis on the role of politicians. Now, it's nearly a year now after we were informed that this updated report, or new report, if we want to call it that, was nearing completion, but it's still not released. So what is the status now of the Vrede Dairy second phase investigation, and when will we finally see that report? Then, Chair, on the issue of the role of the Deputy Public Protector, we know that previously the former Deputy Public Protector was tasked with training. So could we be informed as to who is now in charge of training at the Public Protector's office? We know that it is a bit of a revolving door there, so obviously training is very important. And then along the lines of other questions regarding the COVID levels, could we be informed as to at what level do the Public Protector foresee that they will again accept walk-in clients? Because we know that that is also a very important part of being accessible. And then lastly, Chair, on the issue of labour relations, others have referred to it, but I want to ask some more specific questions. We know that the previous CFO, Mr. Kaposa, has been terminated. The COO, Mr. Baloy, has been terminated. Could we be afforded information and a report as to whether the termination was accepted, whether there was any settlements, whether there's any labour action from their side still going on, and if there has been any settlements or orders, what the total costs of these settlements or court orders was against the Office of the Public Protector. And then the previous colleague has referred to the suspension of the provincial manager in the Free State, but could we be afforded specific details as to how many provincial representatives and senior managers and investigators are currently under suspension by the Public Protector? In each case, for how long they have been suspended, and what the planning is in the respect of dealing with the complaints the Public Protector has against these people. And then lastly, who in the Office of the Public Protector is dealing with these disciplinaries? Is it dealt with in-house, given their financial constraints? And if it is outsourced, could we be afforded a full report as to the costs of all labour-related matters and disciplinary actions if it is outsourced since the Public Protector has taken office? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honourable Janche.
Thank you very much, Honourable Chair. Let me also take this opportunity to thank the Public Protector of South Africa, Advocate Mkhwebane, and her team, but also for the comprehensive presentation they've delivered to us. I just want to raise quite a couple of issues, Chair, but maybe let me start where the acting COO ended. She corrected a few errors in the document, because I want to start there because I've got an allergy to issues of grammar and editing, because it does affect my flow of reading and following things. I think I would have also expected her to just correct on page 7 of the EPP, the foreword. It says the foreword by the Chief Executive Officer, when it is supposed to be a foreword by the acting Chief Executive Officer. Because Yalegile is not yet a COO. But on the next page where she signed, it's done correctly. And there are quite a number of others. So I'd like for the public protector that I think let's discuss the issues of editing. They must never be part of the questions that we ask. So those things get cleaned out. Let me start with a strat plan and speak to the public protector. I was happy when she indicated that she's halfway in her term, 3.5 years. And the question I wanted to ask there, which I thought is kind of a missed opportunity, that for a mid-term review, has the PP kind of sat down with her team and used this opportunity of this APP and strat plan to say in our mid-term, this is the kind of thing that we want to review. These are the kind of things that we want to do, having had 3.5 years behind her. I'm missing that part because what I am looking for is, if I were to refer, for example, in her last APP of 2019-2020, there's something beautiful that she raised there, which I find missing here, when she said, and let me just quote this, as you will see in this document, we continue to place a lot of emphasis on outcomes and impact where the core function is concerned. And you would know, Chair, this is your issue, the issue of outcomes and impact when we deal with these issues. So I like that, and I was kind of watching that journey, whether what she said then is coming through. And I want to take that because, for example, in 2023, we would want to remember this office and see what legacy has been built in the public protector as an institution. If you take the Auditor General's office, sometimes you don't remember who was the Auditor General, but that office is always remembered. If you take the Concord, we don't always remember who was the Chief Justice, but the institution it remains with good systems, with everything else. So I was hoping that part of the midterm review, these are the kind of things that you'd like to leave at the end of the term. So this is only a comment because today, Chair, is different from an annual report. As I said also last week, today we're listening to a promise of the public protector, care plans. I am going to stay away from asking things that are...
Honorable Janche, can you go back? Yes, can you go back to today? You said today and then you lost us.
Okay, no, I was saying today, the purpose of today, the meeting with the PP and her office, is for us to hear her promise, her plans, and her prayers. It is not about what has happened because the annual report date is coming in October. So we're really interested about what she is putting forward to us as a proposition. That's really the focus of, and I'd like to focus on that so that I don't even ask the things that are not relevant to that. So if I were to proceed and go, because I'm referring to the strat plan and APP and not the presentation. If I were to go to page 22 of the strat plan, PP, there are two things I want to raise there. You mentioned the issue of the institution as an obligation to finalize cases that have already, and so on. But you have a caseload of investigators per the work that they do. The question I want to ask there, what is this ratio, caseload of an investigator and the amount of work that they need to do? Because that's really not been spelled out there. It's also not spelled out in the APP. If we can get that, to understand the kind of pressure that office has. And then the next point here is on the paragraph that deals with the disaster recovery system. And my issue there is that we're in a disaster as we speak in terms of COVID-19. Shouldn't that have been a kind of jump-started? And for the public protector to say, because nothing is happening there, I would have expected it to say, given the disaster that we're facing, This is how we want to jumpstart this project, and therefore these are the kind of resources that we need in relation to that. And then my next point on the strat plan is on page 26. I like the risk register that you are introducing, which is a very good piece of work, because it helps us to understand that your plans, you've identified the risk. But there's a risk that I think has not been included, which should be included, and it has been raised by other colleagues. This is the risk about enforcing the remedial action. That risk, and the key risk is that you have got increasing litigation costs, and she is enforcing that. She's not put that in the risk register because we would want to know what are her mitigation efforts to ensure that the litigation cost does not increase. It's supposed to be in a risk register, but it's not in. But I'm happy and I appreciate that we have this risk register. If I were to proceed to the APP, Chair, and speak to the acting CEO, in terms of PEP 4 where I think paragraph 2, Ms. Lucibane, you might want to keep that paragraph and bring it back in October, because it's really a paragraph that spells out what you have achieved, which is really your annual report work. You'll do well without it. And then I want to check, Chair, hence I raised the point about the impact and outcomes. I want to know what is the magic from the Public Protector's Office about the 50 reports. What is the magic about 50 reports as an outcome that you have planned? Likelihood is that you are going to have 50 reports, but you'd have no impact around this kind of. So I want to understand, because they have said we're going to produce 50 reports. Why 50 reports? Why not less than that or more? And I'm missing the kind of impact. Again, what you're having is the numbers game, which I think in the public protector space, we need more than numbers. We need the kind of impact that the office can help us with. Then my next point, Chair, which I think the Deputy Public Protector has alluded to, is on these systemic investigations. It would be good you have mentioned Home Affairs, perhaps not for today, but I think in a future presentation, for us to zoom and focus on these systemic investigations and get to understand the proper kind of an example. I'm really not that we get that, but I think it's important for us to understand, because if you've got departments that continue to repeat the same mistakes, it doesn't augur well for the state resources that we have. And then share, perhaps just as I go to conclude, I'm happy that the PP has identified some of the things to be reviewed in the strat plan and APP as a result of COVID. And I think a lot of work would need to be done there. The first risk is COVID itself. The PP is saying the 58 million cuts that the Treasury is intending. They are saying to us, if that is done, this office is not going to be able to do such things. I think it's going to be important that to make a very stronger case there. And obviously this APP, we're not able to get that case. So I think it's going to be important that we are assisted to understand, is it possible that 58 million can be taken somewhere else? If not, what is it that needs to be done for us to get into that? And then there's just another point that I thought it's important, the issue of the electronic case management. It's put in the back burner. Again, it is part of the list, but I do not see any indicator in the APP that begins to say to us, this is how we're going to deal with this. Because this COVID-19 program has brought to the fore the need for us to work quite smarter and in a new normal. That's an opportunity for such a project to have been escalated and for us to see how we will deal with those. I think for now, Chair, I will pause there. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Can you repeat that? Can you repeat when you were talking about a stronger case to be made for 58 million?
Yes, Chair. The point I'm making there is that the people is saying to us, we have already been told that about 58 million is going to be cut from their budget. And they have indicated to us where that cut will come from. And the point I am making was they go further to say, if this cut is materialized, we are not going to be in a position as the PP's office to go ahead with some of what we've planned, some of what we're presenting to you. And the point therefore I'm making is that in the presentation, perhaps the case is not coming quite stronger for us to, as the portfolio committee, to be persuaded to understand why we want to support this office and cushion it for a certain amount of cuts, because it's not just the cut, it's also what they also need for some of the things. And therefore the point I'm making, that it will be good to, as part of them reviewing some of the targets in relation to COVID-19, for them to come back to us very shortly, for us to focus our minds on that, because there might be other areas of fact where we think should be cut, as an example. So that's the point I was making, Chair.
Okay, sure. Thank you very much. Honorable Horn, you are saying that you want to ask one additional question. It should be one.
Yeah, Chair, with your permission, it's two, but it will be very short.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you. Yeah. I just wanted to know just a bit more detail. The Honourable Breitenbach has referred to the personal cost order. Now, we know there's one that was confirmed by the Constitutional Court. So if we could just be informed as to whether that personal cost order has been settled, and ultimately, if so, to what extent and to what amount the crowdfunding that was embarked upon contributed to the settlement of that personal cost order. And then, Chair, the one I forgot to ask about is the additional funding requested by the Public Protector. Firstly, one would recall that when Advocate Mkhwebane took office, she informed Parliament in South Africa that consultants at the Public Protector was to be something of the past. Whether she still holds that view and whether she could then maybe just unpack her requests for additional funding a bit further. There's a 10 million request for what she calls a subject matter expert, which she must please explain, because it seems as if this really is just another phrase for consultants. And then there's an additional 10 million initially, and then $1 million per year for the issue I have referred to, the case management system. And what is a bit of a concern there is that we now know that Mr. James Ramabulana, a former SSA agent, when he talked about other matters, which is not relevant now, also alluded to the fact that the one Mr. Mahindra Moodley, who is the consultant used for the case management system, is really an SSA contact. So is Parliament expected to then fork out 10 million rand to really pay, in essence, the SSA? And there is also a request for an additional 1 million rand per year thereafter. This just doesn't seem fair that we are to, through the Office of the Public Protector, then pay additional funds for to the SSA if they purport to be consultants on the case management matter. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Before I allow the public protector and her team to respond, can we have a 2-minute comfort break?
Thank you, Chair. Agreed.
Agreed.
Yes. that will give
Agreed. The bad part is that we'll have to prepare lunch on our own.
That's fine.
Can we start? PP, can you respond to the questions that were put to you and to your team?
Thank you, Chairperson and honorable members. I will address some of the responses, and I will request the DPP and the acting CEO. I think there was also the issue of the acting CFO to clarify the issues relating to some amounts. I would like to open by saying thank you for your engagements, and all of you always make us to reflect on your comments and improve ourselves over and over, and we don't take your suggestions and your inputs and your questions lightly. Responding to Honorable Swart, I need to be very clear that the 158 COVID complaints which we've received, they not all relate to issues of COVID-19, but they relate to your normal maladministration complaints. It's only 16 of them which are relating to COVID-19. I think most of them relates to access to water. You remember at the beginning, the issue of washing of hands, some communities not having water or access to water, and the procurement-related complaints.
We can't hear you.
Hello, can you hear me?
Can you assist? We can't.
Chair,
I can't
Steve,
hear the PP at all.
clearly. Chair, the members seem to be able to hear her. I can hear her clearly.
Maybe if you can mute your mic, Chairperson, maybe it will improve.
PP?
Yes?
PP?
Yes, Chairperson?
PP?
Yes, Chairperson, I can hear you.
I would ask you to start from the beginning. Yes, can you start from the, we could not hear anything. Can you start from the?
Okay. Do you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay. I was saying thank you, Chairperson, for giving us this opportunity. And thank you so much for learning and improving our performance and our management of this institution through your questions, through your comments. We don't take them lightly, but we appreciate them. So on answering Honorable Swart, we've received 158 complaints. We are working from home, but our complaints and stakeholder management executive manager has been working throughout the process to register the complaints and allocating temporary reference numbers because we didn't have our administration staff in the office for now. So it's only 16. Chairperson, do you hear me?
Okay. Chairperson, can you hear me? I think there's a problem on your side, Chair, because we can hear the PP correctly and we can't see you properly and we can't hear you properly. There must be a problem in your side.
We can hear you now, but we can't. We could hear there is. Hello?
Yes, I can hear you.
Honorable Ngola? Yes.
I'm saying, Chair, there may be a problem on your side. We can hear the PP correctly and we can see her vividly. But it is a different case when it comes to you. Your picture is blurry and you are continuously cutting. So maybe you can ask the staff comment to attend.
IT, can you assist? So if honorable members can hear the PP can proceed, and I would ask the our ICT to deal with my case because I can't hear the PP at all.
Chair, it might help to mute your mic as well. It does help.
Proceed, PP.
Thank you, Chairperson. Yes, Honorable Swart, I hope I've answered the issue of the COVID-19 complaints.
Proceed,
Only 16
PP.
relating to COVID-19, procurement, violation of Section 217 of the Constitution, and the deviations. I think on this one, honorable members, is a serious concern which I was going to deal with when we address the issue of our budget. On the issue of water and sanitation and the malnutrition, Honorable Swart, I think this one, we will have to do a joint investigation with the Human Rights Commission because remember, they are responsible for making sure that they deal with issues of access to socio-economic rights. So I will engage the Professor Majola, and so that we can share the notes and we can allocate investigators. Hence, I said we do have a memorandum of understanding with them, and we do conduct several investigations with the Human Rights Commission. And the issue of the NCC, we are not consulted, Chairperson. In fact, Honorable Swart, and even the drafting of the regulations. But I must indicate that we are also continuing our meetings as chairpersons or as heads of Chapter 9 institutions, Chapter 9 and 11 and 13 of the Constitution, where we deliberate about our work and during this particular process. And we've raised several issues where we delegated or we requested the chairperson of our forum, which is IEC currently, to engage the NCC and inform them that we would want the institutions supporting democracy to participate in the process, because we are afraid of, or we are indicating to them that the Constitution is not suspended during this particular process, and we are seeing some of the violations of the Constitution, and we would want them to be proactive so that we don't find ourselves in the challenges of violation of people's rights. So on this one, the chairperson, Mr. Mashinini, has written a letter to the NCC so that we can be engaged and participate and also support, because that's our key responsibility, to support constitutional democracy. But I know that some of the Chapter 9 institutions are engaged as and when the need arises. And when it comes to the issue of the budget cuts, everyone has asked about that. We were just informing the honorable members that there is that possibility, but we've written to Treasury and we've also indicated that the impact of the budget cuts to the institution, and we can share the presentation we've made to Treasury and the motivation with the committee. On the issue of labor issues, I will ask the acting CEO to respond to that. And on the issue of, in fact, on the issue of labor issues, the general issue is that several of those employees have violated the internal policies of the public protector. So the matter is purely focusing on that. I mean, it's a question of discipline, which the institution will have to enforce, but the details the acting CEO as the head of administration will deal with. And on the issue of court findings, Honorable Swart and honorable members, I think Honorable Ngola also asked about the issue of litigation budget. I must indicate that as the institution, our budget for litigation, actually we are not budgeting specifically for that, because our core is investigations and we focus on that. And that budget falls under the issues of goods and services and consultants general, because it's professional fees. I must indicate that it's a concern for me, Chairperson and honorable members, that this is portrayed as if this institution is the only institution which is facing litigation. All other institutions which are also accounting to this particular committee also do have challenges of their matters being taken on review or being litigated against. I think members of the portfolio committee will know that we also did our own research just to check other institutions which are reporting to the Justice and Constitutional, in fact, to Correctional Services Portfolio Committee. How much do they spend for their litigation costs? For instance, we were checking institutions like your Justice, where they spend up to 1.8 billion on litigation, your SIU spending 21 million and an increase from 7.5 million, and your SAP spending up to 300 million for 2018-19 on legal services. Your Home Affairs, which is not reporting to you, but which reports to another committee, up around 1.9 billion, which is not also their core. I must indicate that taking our matter on review, that's a process in a democracy where people who are not happy with any report or outcome of a report can take us on review. I must also indicate that if members of the committee can check the previous reports of other public protectors with the current public protectors reports, just to check for yourselves whether we have not done our part, because we investigate, we check what happened, what should have happened, what prescripts have been violated, and what remedial action we should be issuing as far as the matter is concerned. Honorable Swart, the issue of Busasa matter and the 3 judges who were sitting, again, is the issue of comparisons. You would understand that the very same judge president who issued a judgment in another matter relating to the state of capture report and the powers of the public protector, the way he mentioned or elaborated on them compared to now what the very same judgment was saying. But I won't go into details as far as those matters are concerned. The SARS matter, again, is questioning the mandate of the public protector per the Constitution, comparing to the national legislation. I think, honorable member, legally, you know that the Constitution is the supreme law. But then these matters will be taken on appeal so that a different court might also pronounce on them. But the findings and the perception that there is negative mentions by those judges, I think we should be focusing more on what the law is saying and how can we improve on them going forward. So, Honorable Hendricks, you mentioned that have we prepared for level 3? As an institution, we've been working since the lockdown, as I said, from home, especially most of our investigators. And currently, we have a plan of our employees returning to work. We've got a schedule from Monday. They will be returning. I'll ask the CEO also to deal in details with that if necessary, or we can share that with the members of the committee. And then again, Honorable Hendricks, I said 95% of our investigations relates to matters which impact the grassroots. And we have impacted their lives positively because on matters which we've investigated and the reports we've issued and how they have been implemented. I've mentioned the access to water related reports. I've mentioned, I think you mentioned the issue of Masiphumelele, which is good because currently we also have that community in Reimsach. I've mentioned that we are assisting those 64 families who've been left destitute there for the past 3 to 4 years. So most of our work relates to that. But on issues of the sewage, spillage, I would also then request that we can cooperate with the Human Rights Commission, because most of the time we are excelling in interventions, especially when we work together, and we can check where can we have most of the own initiative investigation. And the good thing is that that falls within the area of the Deputy Public Protector, and we can look into that, especially when we do systemic investigations. Honorable Jelle, thanks for the encouragement or words of encouragement. And you mentioned the issue of the decline in complaints. That's the main intention of the Public Protector Vision 2023, that we advise the complaint, because we have a reduction of no jurisdiction matters, a lot of them, because now it shows that people understand what is the mandate of the Public Protector instead of approaching the Public Protector to assist them. But also we will focus more on these internal complaints mechanisms of the various institutions, so that people use the Public Protector as an office of last resort, so that we don't do the work of the public servants, but then the very same public servants do their work, and where then there's maladministration, undue delay, and issues of or abuse of power, then we can intervene as an institution. So on the issue of the National Treasury cutting the budget, that is still a discussion, and I think we have pleaded enough with National Treasury, but we will also ask the committee to assist in that particular respect. And what measures have been put in place, the plan for COVID, we have a plan we can share with the members of the portfolio committee. It's detailing all our processes and procedures, but then as well in the presentation, we have indicated what we've done as far as COVID-19 is concerned. And I am glad that you mentioned that litigation in a democratic country or maturing democracy, indeed, we will face those challenges. The acting positions, you will remember that we only had the CEO who resigned end of January. So the previous CFO is acting CEO. And then we have the senior manager finance, who is acting CFO. We have interviewed for the CEO position, but then our numbers or the numbers or the number of applications we've received were few, so we wanted to open up for more applicants. We will be conducting interviews again before the end of May. We will be filling that position very soon, the position of CEO. And also we will be interviewing for the position of COO, which we interviewed and we identified a candidate, but then the candidate then withdrew last minute. She was supposed to start beginning of March, and then she didn't take the offer anymore. I think she received a better offer somewhere else. But then currently the executive managers who are at the level of chief directors in government are the ones who are supposed to make sure that the work of their and the reports and the investigations, there is quality assurance in their work. And again, we also have the DPP who's assisting a lot, because some of the reports are issued or are passing through her to assist with quality assurance. And the issue of the language, yes, in all our road shows, we do have the sign language interpreter. to explain the mandate of the public protector in addition to braille. So we do have the sign language. We do pay the sign language, Honorable Jelle and Honorable Druchen. And the email, we will email the errors we've mentioned. Definitely we'll do that. And the working online, a lot of our senior investigators have laptops, and they are having data to access their work, and they've been working from home. But then from Monday, then we will have that schedule of them coming back to the office, especially where there is issues relating to accessing the manual files. And the road shows and outreach, we will be doing, we agreed with the team that we will be keeping them as they are. They will, especially the first quarter, will be impacted because of the COVID-19. But then what we will be doing, we will be using more visual engagements, but we'll also engage more with SABC and community radio stations. So we will have sessions where we are using community radio and in the vernacular languages to continue, and we will be changing only the technical description indicator so that we can use that as evidence when we are being audited. So we've indicated that we will have to amend our strategic document and APP as far as that is concerned. And the issue of the servers, yes, we had very serious challenges during the lockdown. We had some one or two server, in fact, one server crashing, but then that was resolved, and the intervention we have made. Fortunately, finally, Public Works and the landlord have assisted that we now have the generator, and that is the thing of the past. We will not face that problem anymore. And the issue of the thermometers, the CEO or CFO, in fact, CEO will respond to that. Honorable Breitenbach, the issue of the DPP, you're saying why she's not operational. DPP will answer that one and explain her involvement. I mean, she's doing a lot and in details. And the removal of the 7,000 cases, that one has been removed because we indicated that most of the time we will receive more complaints than that 7,000, and that number is fluctuating. And now the going forward, or the strategy, is to focus more on systemic investigations than dealing with individual complaints. So that's where DPP will also explain further on the issue of what Honorable Janji was saying, because that's one of the pillars that we would want now to concentrate more on systemic investigation and do away with these individual complaints or the work of the public servants, because you'd find that a lot of complaints, for instance, Home Affairs is leading, municipalities and JIPA. So we would want to have MOUs with them. DPP will sit with them. We've started with Home Affairs. Now they will establish the complaints unit. And when a person comes to us, we will refer them to that so that they deal and we monitor. And when they don't assist the person, then we can investigate that maladministration part. And the issue of outreach, they will be done through radio and community radio and SABC radio, Honorable Breitenbach. And yes, that will have an impact on the on our budget, because it means the available budget, we can utilize it for other line items. The reprioritization by Minister Tito Mboweni, that is an issue I wanted to raise to the committee, because some of the complaints we are receiving on violation of Section 217 or the procurement-related issues. Hence, I'm pleading with all accounting officers and even yourselves in your monitoring, because you find a situation where prices have been exponentially increased for the work which is supposed to be done. I mean, Those are still going to be investigated. I think we know the public works issue of the installation of the borderline in Limpopo. We do have some information we are receiving about the procurement of the PPEs, where you'll find a mask costing 15 rands if you procure in bulk, but others are charging 30 rands, and you'd imagine how that will cost. So a lot of money, you'll find that it will be utilized on the PPEs for the COVID-19, but sometimes it's not value for money. And I think that is something which government government should make sure that they look into and focus on seriously, because I mean, some of the information I have, you find the procurement of PPEs costing to up to 363 million, but that's where the prices have been inflated. So there's a number of work which has to be done. Unfortunately, with our capacity, it's a challenge. The Selby Mukoto matter, the investigation is at an advanced stage, and but the current challenge was to engage with the Reserve Bank governor. So we will find a date and we'll have a meeting just to clarify issues, because they raised some concerns about the complaint, and our only issue was to request them to assist with information from their side. And on the issue of litigation costs, I've mentioned earlier, and I've addressed the issue of litigation, which will be part of what we are doing. But Honorable Breitenbach, what we're doing now, we are defending several matters where the matter has an impact on the mandate of the public protector. We don't just defend or oppose a matter. Remember, we are not going to court. We are taken to court, and when we oppose, that's where we will be liable for costs. A lot of matters, some of them we don't oppose if there's no impact to our mandate. Some of them we oppose internally, and then some of them we use external professional help. And the trip to Turkey, I think that one the DPP will, the CEO will address. Honorable Ngola, the scathing judgments, I think I've addressed the matter. That it has nothing most of the time to do with how we've drafted our reports, which reports have gone through all the processes of quality assurance, but sometimes you'll find that instead of dealing with the mandate or the relevant prescripts, sometimes it's on technical issues. I think you'll understand, especially sometimes some court matters, they deal with issues which are technical, instead of just dealing with possibly the what we investigated and what we tried to put the person who has been impacted to the position which they are supposed to be, because that's purely what we're doing. We are here to defend the public. And on the issue of ethical and developmental state, that's what we are trying to do, because on all our investigation, we are saying these are the prescripts on the regulations you have. You've appointed this person, your policy is saying this, you violated your policy. That's all what we do. Or if it's a procurement issue, the PFMA, this provision says this, you violated that provision. And if we refer the matter, we refer to an institution which has the mandate to do that. Acting positions have addressed that. And the issue of the work, there's in fact, the acting positions are indicated will fill the CEO post, will fill the COO post soon. And those suspended managers, we have rearranged our executive managers within the institution who are doing the relevant work. And hold on, something went wrong. Okay, yeah, there was something. DPP will answer on the issue of the ADR. The ADR is relating to the kind of, because remember the Public Protector, in terms of the Public Protector Act, has the role to do as well mediation and conciliation. So that We are willing, Chairperson and honourable members, to share the response in case that response is needed from us, especially to deal with the complaints or what has been brought to the Chairperson or to the Speaker about by PSA. CEO and CFO will deal with a framework on utilization of budgets. I don't know whether, Chairperson, I'm still audible enough. And yes, Chairperson. Okay, the access to the office.
Chair, you need to unmute your mic. We can hear the Public Protector clearly.
No, I'm saying the Public Protector can proceed.
Okay.
Seemingly, I'm the only one who seems to have a problem. I do get you in some parts, but sometimes I think there's a bigger IT issue here.
Okay. Thank you. And level 3, we are ready to welcome staff. We have a plan and how they are going to report within the various, we've put measures in place. We have the sanitizers, we've provided the mask, we've got the thermometers, and the issue of social distancing will be maintained. And we've shared with the unions and the staff, consulted them. So we are ready to go. And on the issue of utilization of state infrastructure, I'll ask the CEO just in short to also indicate our engagement with Public Works, because we depend on Public Works. We've identified 2 offices in Limpopo and Eastern Cape, but now the challenge is state-owned properties. We can save a lot, like in Northwest, but we don't have the resources to renovate those offices. We're still engaging Public Works. Honorable Horn, on the litigation, SARS and Busasa, I've already addressed those. Yes, indeed, we have approached the Constitutional Court on direct access. That is only purely on the mandate of the Public Protector, Honorable Horn. Whether the Public Protector, when taking remedial action, the issue of referral to other institutions which are obligated in terms of Section 181 to assist the Public Protector in the investigation or in supporting the Public Protector in ensuring that there's good governance, and the Constitutional Court to just advise on that, and also the work which is done by the Public Protector in the course of her duty, and the issue of the personal cost and what are the requirements of a person being subjected to personal costs. And the issue of quality, I've indicated that the executive managers who are at the chief director level are quality assuring their reports, but then those reports also pass through the chief of staff who's legally qualified and through the DPP to assist in the quality assurance. And some of them, if they have a legal issue, we engage our legal services who will then have to conduct further advice. And we also have our research unit, which also conduct research for us. And the turnaround strategy, we've achieved that. We didn't have the resources to appoint a company to do that for us. And then we engaged the Department of Public Service and Administration. And it focused more on the support staff, where they had to do job evaluations, and they also have to assist us with our structure. So that process has been completed. We are now approaching we've approached Minister of Finance, especially the consulting on the structure. There are few changes which are there. And on the issue of legal integrity of reports, I've dealt with that. And the lack of case management system. The case management system, Honorable Horn, I think you are mentioning a state security agency, and that we are going to pay them I must indicate that when we were engaging them and advising, we were requesting them to advise like any other state institution, because they are a constitutional institution, on the security of our system. And also we engage them on utilizing one specialist, international specialist, who was willing to develop a system which is web-based for us, and they advised on the security of that particular aspect. They were also saying if they develop for us, they told us they will be charging certain amounts when we were engaging them, but we never utilized them. And on the cases older than 2 years, the 169 which was remaining, we will share with the portfolio committee about the details of those. We have finalized, I would say, 90% of that 169 cases. I don't want to say all of them. I just want to supply the portfolio committee with the written progress on that. But then I must indicate that cases dating back to 2011, 2012, 2013, we no longer have in our system. If they are there, you might find that is 1 or 2. But I'm glad that now we've started on a clean slate. We are focusing then on cases which I received as the incumbent currently. But also we need to monitor cases which are older than 2 years, so that we are also not being accused of, delaying to finalize complaints of the complainants. In fact, that issue of speedy finalization of matters. On the issue of how many files per investigator, that is very high, Honorable Horn. Currently, hence, our investigators have a lot of work to do comparing on how many we have. For instance, in 2017-18, the total caseload was around 18,356, and for 130 investigators. So on average, caseload per investigator was around 141 per year. And 2018-19, 14,000 complaints received, and number of investigators, at least we hired more investigators, it was 151. The caseload per investigator per annum was 94. So currently you'll find that an investigator, a senior investigator, investigates the complex matters. They might have more than 20 of those complex matters, which requires a lot of time and to analyze evidence, to investigate. Yeah. Then the issue of training, who's responsible? There's that one, a CEO will respond, but I must indicate that there is on-the-job training. Is the responsibility of each manager, from senior manager in terms of the senior management code for human resource to train on the job. But then the CEO will answer what we have currently as far as that is concerned. When are we going to accept walk-in clients? I think for now we are not accepting them. We will accept them as soon as we receive new advice or direction on how safe it is for us to do that. But then I must indicate that we still receive complaints through telephone, through email. And I think Honorable Janji or Kola, you were asking about the toll-free number, the hotline. From Monday, we will be operational. We have the toll-free number where complainants can phone in to lodge their complaints. And total amounts of labor costs, that will be submitted, Honorable Horn, because you want that information since the beginning of my term, and it's HR related. And the issue of suspended employees, the matters have been reallocated. We've got capable chief executive managers, and the workload is manageable. And the issue of the outsourced, or the issue of the consultants, Honorable Horn, I think consultants in public service, when we also deal with our budget, I think we will say consultancy or professional fees. Your consultancy in this instance, it refers to your attorneys, your advocates, your auditing, that's how we refer to. But then when I started, I said I would not, in terms of Section 7.3 of the Public Protector, in fact, in terms of Section 3.7 of the Public Protector, outsource investigation to consultants. So the consultants we are referring to here as experts whom we will approach as and when we need an expert advice. I mean, there's one matter of ESCOM, well, it's an old matter about Midupi. We are investigating. We have all the evidence from ESCOM. We don't have that expertise. So that's where we will request somebody to assist us to analyze that evidence, but not to investigate. So that's the difference of consultants I was referring to. The personal cost order, that has been paid up. And again, that shows the issue of the public paying for my costs, because I have been doing the public work to defend the public. And the amount which has been paid out, and thanking all those who have contributed, though I was not involved in the collation of the money. I only informed the people who were collecting the money that this is the bill I've received, and they paid the 260,000 which has been being owed. And I think that's all I can say from that aspect. And Honorable Janki, thank you so much for your questions and your, I mean, I was telling them yesterday also when we were preparing finally that you raised the following issues, especially the impact of the pillars. So we need to show the committee what have we done. So I think we are learning, and the spellings, and unfortunately, we were using internal people. It means now, because you are sitting in the committee and you are very sensitive to this, we'll have to get external editing, because we were trying to save on costs as far as this is concerned, but actually we won't afford to have such a document going out there. It's not correct. So I think it's one thing we will have to review and make sure that we focus on it. And because if you have a specialist in the field, you pay them and you'll hold them accountable. And the issue of the halfway, the impact, maybe even if we didn't mention the impact, but we've changed a lot of the lives of South Africans, Honorable Janji, because the access to water, which we've referred to, the reports we've issued, and those which have been implemented, the livelihood of the people at Maspumelele, the Remsach people now, what government is doing to at least work with us to change the lives of South Africans. And that's what we did, because when we do well, I think maybe not specifically because I'm in my third term, but then we were just checking what impact and what work we've done with the team throughout the whole process. But I think it's one thing we'll have then to make sure that after this session and the questions you've asked, we go back and check whether are we on track, the impact, and changing the lives of the people, irrespective of who is in the office. And the issue of our strat plan, the way that we were supposed to dwell much on the promises, that is taken care of, in fact, is noted, instead of dwelling on achievements which will be in the annual performance plan. So the ratio per investigators, I think I've dealt with that, or I thought it's Honorable Horn who asked about that. Disaster recovery system, I think that one the acting CEO and DPP can address, because that's what they've come up with. We do have that particular plan. Even yesterday, we finished very late when they were presenting the executive managers how are we going to go forward in dealing with that. The issue of implementation of the remedial action, we were using the speaker and where we expected the assistance of the members of parliament, your monitoring in terms of section 42 and 55 of the constitution. we are using that aspect, but we will include it in our risk. I think because we still have an opportunity to amend, we will include it. But I think DPP will also speak more on our engagement with FOSAD, because we would want to work with them more so that whatever report, in fact, that's our intention, any report or any investigation, we want to work very closely with the department and the corporation so that even when we issue the report, the intention of issuing the report is to correct the wrongs or to right the wrongs which were there and to prevent recurrence of that. So I think public servants should know that when we issue reports, it's not because we are spiteful or we are, but it's to correct and make sure that going forward, that is not repeated. And the CEO will address the issue of the forward and the 50 reports, point taken, it was more on the impact. And I think now, Honorable Janji, instead of dealing with individual complaints of, let's say, irregular appointments, because if you can check our reports we've issued, out of the 150, most of them relates to irregular appointments. So now if we can identify that, as DPP indicated, or is relating to JIPA, then we will focus on systemic investigation. It's not more of what number, but it's more on, now we will be focusing on the impact. And the question would be, but you issued 150 the previous financial year, why are you reducing to 50? That's the yes. So no, another person will ask that. So that's our focus now. It's not about the numbers, but it's about the impact. And the systemic investigation I've dealt with, we have them, but we will be doing more with the assistance of the DPP. And the cut of the budget, that we will share the presentation we've made to National Treasury. And that will mean it's worse because it has an impact on our contractual obligations. So it means if they take the 58 million, it means we will have employees coming to work, not having access to emails because we have Microsoft, we've got SAP, we've got those contractual, and it's even worse, our employees, we're still trying to find security for them. We don't have budget to pay security, that we leave it to the honorable members to assist. And the electronic case management system, it has been there. We've working with this consultant who's not going to charge us for the low level one, very basic case management system, which is web-based. And then as we build on that, that's where in the outer years we will request additional funding. But at least if we can just have the basic system. I must also indicate that in the APP, we will be having an app, a referral app, which we will be developing for this financial year. Again, is to make sure that we minimize people coming to the office, we minimize the number of complaints to the public protector, but that app will then say, you have a complaint about JIPA, this is the complaint unit of JIPA, these are the details, lodge your complaint. When you are not assisted, then come back to the public protector. So we will be working on that. Thank you so much, honorable members. I'll give to acting CEO and DPP just to clarify the issues which have been raised.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. I'm going to deal with the matters that the Public Protector has referred to me to deal with. Firstly, to address the issue raised by Honorable Swartz of the complaints on the water and sanitation and a possible systemic investigation into the nutrition. As branch AJSD, we've had a discussion with the Human Rights Commission, which has made a commitment that on issues of collaboration, they are there for us to collaborate on these issues. And as PP has said, we will definitely at first instance refer these issues so that we can start with these investigations together with the Human Rights Commission. On the other issue raised by Honorable Swartz on the issue of dealing with matters of the grassroots level, AJSD is at the center of dealing with matters of maladministration, issues of non-action by public officials, and it carries the majority of the cases within the public protector, which means that the majority of the cases that the public protector is dealing with are the cases that actually affect the grassroots level. On the matter raised by Honorable Breitenbach on my delegations, I think, Honorable Chair, because of time, I really did not divulge what my delegations entail in entirety. Firstly, let me state that I am a part of the task team register chaired by the Public Protector, the dashboard chaired by the Public Protector, as well as the leadership meetings, which are chaired by the Public Protectors. These meetings sit weekly and monthly, and they discuss in detail all cases that are being handled by the Public Protector Office, including matters of good governance and integrity, which are not delegated to me. So in these platforms, I get the opportunity to comment on these matters. And we have established a culture with the Public Protector to consult each other on cases. The Public Protector has referred a number of cases to me for me to make an opinion on those particular cases, even though they were not delegated to me. Part of AJSD and CSM assesses the matters, which means that matters that come into the Office of the Public Protector at first hand, one of the branches that I'm responsible for assesses the matter, whether it is a matter within our jurisdiction, it is a matter within the law for us to deal with, and that is within my delegations. AJSD deals with maladministration, failure to act. Intense investigations are taking place within this branch, which I am overseeing. I have chaired 2 alternative dispute resolutions, which we have turned into fully fledged investigations, which have been handled by this branch. The reports are almost at finalization. I am overseeing those matters. I am also overseeing, as part of many other investigations that are being dealt with by this branch, the Alexandra Renewal Project. Further to this as well, if I can place this together with the issue of what are we doing to address some of the Constitutional Court outcomes. I've also been dealing with the issue of strengthening our internal systems so that we are able to deal with the substantive issues that have been raised by the courts. Most importantly, so that we are able to show the protocol through which our investigations go through, strengthen our quality assurance. As a result, which is also part of training, is that all senior investigators, it has been requested upon them to strengthen their mentoring and coaching on the assistant investigators, the investigators and the senior investigators. As a result, we've also strengthened the system of file inspection, which also sees itself coming out of our recovery plan, where weekly the senior investigators as well as the executive managers are going to have to inspect the timesheets, which are part of our recovery plan, which will be produced by the investigators. So which means that they are going to have to confirm the work that they have done and the quality of work that they have done. So that is part of the extent of the work that is delegated to me. Honourable members, it can also state that it's really been early days. It's been just over 3 months. We are progressing, and we are progressing very well together with the Public Protector and the rest of the team. There is really no work that I can say that I have not been exposed to. But with time, of course, we've agreed with the Public Protector that we will, of course, review some of the delegations. But as it stands, my hands are full. I am really busy and have done, I've really rolled up my sleeves and have done considerable work considering the time frame that I've been appointed into the position. Honorable Brayton, but let me also address the issue of the progress on the outreach programs, considering the impact of COVID-19. We have drafted a plan where we intend to use digital platforms to reach out to communities, radio stations, particularly your SABC radio stations, to which the grassroots levels mostly listen to, community newspapers, as well as to seize the platforms that have been utilized by our external stakeholders. Some are utilizing through, are publishing through Facebook, Twitter, and so forth. So we are really trying to ensure that we are able to reach the people of South Africa in every possible aspect that we can, especially with the limited conditions that we can do that during this particular period. Honorable Ngola, on the issue of the ADRs that have been delegated to me are the external matters, the matters that we receive as complaints from the public. There are some matters that really do not require us to go into a fully fledged investigation, matters that we can do a conciliation or a mediation or a negotiation to finalize, to speedily finalize those particular matters. So that is the ADR that the PP is referring to, not the labor matters. The labor matters are seized with by operations, which the acting CEO is the head of. To address the issues of mitigating, you know, I've already addressed that on mitigating the outcome of the cases, but on the issue of ensuring that our findings have got an impact, I have earlier alluded to the relationship that we intend building with through foresight, for where we would ensure that we find cooperation in terms of our remedial action. So part of this is we've done an assessment of our cases, and we would want to ensure that we issue remedial actions that are implementable. So in order to do that, it will require an extensive consultative process with government so that our reports can be adopted at a higher level so that they are able to enforce our remedial actions. But as well, we also have an understanding with the Human Rights Commission that on matters of common interest, they will assist us to approach the court for enforcement orders of our remedial action. Unfortunately, we do not have the budget to do this on the majority of our matters. Hence, we are trying by all means to ensure that we have cooperation. Indeed, Honorable Kyanki, it is very important that we see the output of what we would have done, and just the numbers alone do not count, but we need to see the difference that these are making. And our systemic reports are really going to assist in this, because at least it will cover a number of aspects within a particular department. And we've already received cooperation from the Department of Home Affairs, as alluded to previously in the assistance of this. Lastly, on the recovery plan, EMs have given presentations on the recovery plan. I've touched on some of the aspects. The recovery plan really is focused on ensuring that we recover the loss of time during the time of the beginning of the lockdown. But however, investigators have been working from home. We do have a couple of investigators that do not have laptops, and that is also because of our resource challenges. However, laptops are currently being sourced for everybody else to be able to do their work at home. So on the time lost, we have implemented the issue of the timesheets so that colleagues are able to indicate the time and the work that they would have done within that time, and also the prioritization of matters which have exceeded the due time frame in accordance to our APP. So that will show in the work plans that the executive managers have prepared. Furthermore to this, the executive managers have outlined a clear plan and timeframes within which this particular work will be done. And after every month, there is going to be a review of the work to see whether we are on track or we need to put more effort to accelerate and ensure that we are able to reach our targets. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Chairperson. Thank you, DPP and PP. I will start with the question relating to labor matters. The PP has already indicated, I believe it's common cause that when management believes that policies have been violated by employees or employees have misconducted themselves, management has the responsibility to ensure that disciplinary or consequence management is being effected. So it is correct. We have about 5 employees that are currently on suspension. However, due to the fact that these matters are still subject of disciplinary, I request not to, through you, Chairperson, not to divulge the details relating to these particular cases. And again, in terms of alternative dispute resolution that the DPP is responsible for, it's not in relation to employees specifically. However, it relates to complainants. Again, on the labor relations matters, issues of the settlement agreements that we've so far had and the costs since the public protector took office, we request to provide that information at a later stage as it is not readily available. In terms of officials that there was a question whether there are officials that have been infected already with COVID-19. We do not have any knowledge of such. However, probably when you return to office, we will have such information being reported. And then in terms of the potential impact on the budget regarding the PPE that we had to procure, it is correct. The PPE that we procured has had a dent on our budget because it's not something that we had foreseen that we will need. Hence, we indicated it under our budget pressures to say some of them will have to be replenished moving forward. The gloves, sanitizers and all, they will have to be replenished from time to time, and they will definitely have an effect on our operational budget moving forward. While I'm on the budget, the issue about the reprioritization of budget that will be done nationally, as PPSA, unfortunately, we are unable to do any form of reprioritization. As you have seen, when the acting CFO presented that we really don't have much room to play in terms of our budget. About 78% of our budget is on COE purely because our processes are manual based or are labor based. Hence, we don't have much on goods and services budget. PP has covered a lot of the questions. I'm just looking for those that she did not cover. Wasteful expenditure in relation to the Turkey trip. We have a financial misconduct committee that deals with all cases related to financial misconduct, be it irregular expenditure, wasteful and fruitless. The committee has been presented with such a case. They are currently handling that, and we will know the outcome once that committee is done. And then, okay, the cost of the thermometers that we have procured for all our offices, in total 18 offices, we've spent 27,000 in that regard. I think it was indicated on the slide. It could be the projection that really we did not, it didn't show. And then in terms of litigation strategy, not all cases that are being reviewed or not all matters that are being reviewed are being litigated, are being defended externally. We decide as an institution and prioritize those matters that are likely to have an impact on the mandate of the office, and those are the cases that gets to be outsourced to external legal professionals. As it is in the previous financial year, we had 15 matters that were defended or that are being defended internally. So not all cases that are being taken on review that we defend, we prioritize those particular aspects. Just a quick correction. There is an amount on the Turkey trip that had been declared as fruitless, but it has been reversed because we received a refund in that aspect. In terms of paragraph, there's a paragraph that Honorable Janji referred to say we can do without. That paragraph, Honorable Janji, it was in terms of the revised regulations and framework for the compilation of the APP and strategic plan that we're required to include it. Under normal circumstances, we don't do that, or we never used to do that. And then just to add on the issue of the target on finalized cases, on what PP has indicated, in our annual report, we always indicate a summary of cases that we've received, cases that we've finalized, and cases that we are carrying forward to the new financial year. So that information will always be there in terms of our annual report. And then the issue of the turnaround strategy, PP has responded to that. Just looking at my notes.
Framework. Budget framework.
I've responded to that, PP, in terms of the reprioritization.
Okay.
Yes.
I think that's all for the issue of.
Okay, in terms of the walk-ins, there's a question: when do we anticipate to have walk-ins in the office? I believe at level 11, because for I'm sorry, level 2. My apologies. At level 2, that's when we anticipate we can have walk-ins into our offices. However, we will be guided by the regulations that are being issued at each level. However, like the PP indicated, we have a toll-free line, and during the lockdown, there were 2 cell phone numbers that were made publicly available for receipt of any urgent matters that the public needed to report with us.
Okay.
I think, Chairperson, that's about it. Oh, also to acknowledge the omission on page 7, Honorable Janji, the acting title. You are quite correct. It was an omission, and it's one of the issues that we omitted to indicate as an error. Thank you so much.
Chairperson, can you unmute your mic?
Oh,
Yes.
Sorry, I have the following follow-up questions, Honorable Swart.
Can you unmute your mic?
I have follow-up questions, Honorable Swart.
Can you unmute your mic?
I have follow-up questions, Honorable Swart.
Can you unmute your mic?
Honorable Swart.
Yeah, quite an echo. Mike, thank you. That you can. Hear me? First. I will continue now. Can you hear me? Thank you. My apologies for that. I don't know what the reason is. That's one of the challenges of IT. May I thank you for your responses, your in-depth responses, Public Protector. I just urge you on the issue of the water, sanitation, and malnutrition, and what we are picking up on the ground is increase in persons going without food. food, and this is having an implication on people that are requiring to take medication for HIV, AIDS, and tuberculosis. And that is an urgent need for me. So I appreciate you engaging with the Human Rights Commission to look into this issue, but there is a degree of great urgency, and particularly in view of the lockdown and the implication that that is having on access to food and those that cannot take their medication if they are not getting sufficient food. And we know the stats are showing that up to 500 people are dying per day of HIV and AIDS and tuberculosis. That must be balanced against the COVID-19 as well. Every death is very tragic. So I'd ask you to look into that if you can.
The only reason I gave Shane because he knows me from Justice time.
Yeah.
Otherwise he wouldn't.
Yeah, that's right.
Because of Justice. He didn't know him in Parliament.
So people, can you just mute your-
Otherwise,
who's Mike?
Mr. Muhammad.
Yeah.
Who's speaking?
Hey, but it's fine.
Chair.
Yeah.
I'm being interrupted by Mr. Mohammed. I'm on the floor.
Honorable Mohammed.
Thank you, Chair. So I made that comment. Did you hear me, Chair? I won't repeat it because of time constraints, but I just wanted to emphasize that aspect. I would look forward to a response. I know the Public Protector indicated that a letter has been sent by the IEC Chairman to the National Command Council on behalf of Chapter 9 institutions. Now, we are not privy to the IEC, and we'd appreciate the response of that, which it is a concern to me that Chapter 9 institutions are not being used as much as possible when it comes to the drafting of those regulations and the participation in that regard. Chair, just on the issue of the litigation costs, over the years, I've been fully appreciative of the increase in litigation costs that will be incurred due to the fact that the Public Protector's remedial action is binding. And from that point on, I've always said we will expect increased litigation costs. I think our concern is about the quality assurance of the Public Protector's findings that have resulted in those judgments that have been quite scathing. And the Public Protector is at the forefront, but we need to appreciate there's a team behind her that prepares those findings, and that is my concern as to why those scathing judgments are coming out on that aspect. But you have dealt with it in your response. So thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Honorable Swart. Honorable Richard Janchi.
No, thank you very much, Chair. It's just a short one. It's also on the litigations. I think from our strategy workshop in February as a committee, and this is something that needs to be said, we had identified 22 issues that we're going to focus on. One of those is the high cost of litigation across all institutions and departments. So I'm making this so that it's not seen as an issue that we're picking up on the Public Protector. Every department that we meet with, we raise this issue. For example, the reference that the Public Protector is making on justice and other departments, we've started dealing with those issues. But the litigation there is in your state attorney kind of section where there's a claim against the state. So that's why you go into billions. So I don't want us to make comparisons with that. But I am very happy that both the Public Protector and the Deputy Public Protector have addressed this issue for future purposes when they dealt with the issue of the quality assurance and the particular focus on whatever reports that are there are quite qualitative ones. But we also accept that it's not even as they are going to be quality. We don't say that it's not never going to be challenged. So I just wanted to respond to that, Chair, so that this issue is to create a context about why we're concerned about this. It's not just for the PP's kind of space. Everybody that we meet with since February, we've been focusing on this issue of litigation because these are costs that we can save. I think that's a point that we're making. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honorable Janche. PP.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. Thank you, honorable members. We promise to then send the detailed written explanations on COVID-19 cases, follow up with Human Rights Commission on the joint investigation, Honorable Swart, which you've raised, and it's very critical at this stage, and also update you about the meeting or the letter we've written to the NCC. We are meeting as FISD institutions on the 21st of May, so I will also inform them that we will have to brief our various committees on what we are doing during this particular period and whether we've received a response. And thank you so much, Honorable Chairperson, for the opportunity. And we plead with Honorable Chairperson and the portfolio committee members to assist us with the budgetary issues with National Treasury. Thank you so much.
Unmute your mic, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Swart. I'm saying that the discussions were very fruitful. We will await the report from the PP on the cases more than 2 years. We will also will be awaiting a motivation to the National Treasury from the PP so that we can be able to engage also with the budget issues that you have also raised, but we will await your motivation so that it can enhance our engagements. Also, we would be appreciative if you can give us a report on possible potential savings that you might have identified because of the coronavirus. I think most of the departments, including the PP's office, I think you would have made savings on traveling, since most of you are working from home, because we need to save each and every cent. Every cent counts, because as much as our decision is known that we don't support cutting of budgets, especially baseline budget to Chapter 9 institutions, we are in a very difficult space as a country. That 500,000 needs to be found somewhere. Even when we engage with National Treasury and during the parliamentary budget process, we must also bear in mind that we might be able to save some cuts, but not all of it, because at the end of the day, this money has to be found somewhere. So potential savings are important, that they need to be identified. I think what has also been coming out of these discussions today, it's a need for us to create space for discussion with the Office of the Public Protector, especially on the issues that covers 95% of your time, which are bread and butter issues affecting most of our poor people. We have identified issues of water and sanitation. We need to create a space in the committee program for more robust engagement on those issues with the public protector, because I think over time your governance issues have been taking a lot of our focus even as a nation. I think it will be important that we also profile the work that you do which affect our poor people in this country. So we will be creating space for those particular engagements. Now, thank you very much, PP, and to your team. We are really excited about the engagement that we have had. I think it was seriously robust, And I do think that in whatever we do, we want to impact positively on the work of the entities that report to our committee. Thank you very much, PP, and to your team. And thank you very much, honorable members, for the engagements that we have had. Thank you. I think the meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello?
Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you. Thank you.
We'll make sure the score